So my name is Crystal Zunino. I was 23 years old when I was diagnosed with stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is a type of cancer that is in the lymph nodes. I think in diameter is about 13 centimeters, so it's a bigger mass. It was in my chest cavity, so it's next to my heart, and actually had pushed against my esophagus, so it was very difficult to eat or drink anything. And that's actually how we found out that I had cancer. And the doctor had this funny feeling, and he was like, well, let's just do a CT and go from there. So we did a CT, and he found a huge mass, and it was stage 2 B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we did 6 rounds of chemo, which is 6 months, and I thought I was going to be able to work during that time. So I tried to go back to teaching. I went back for a day. Didn't make it through the whole day, made it to 5th period. I made it long enough to tell my students that I was diagnosed with cancer. Of course, that was the hardest thing I had to do, to tell a bunch of 7th graders that their favorite teacher was diagnosed with cancer. And you had to be strong for them. But at the same time, though, it was very scary. I was very weak at that point. I was very sleepy. I couldn't really go anywhere because I would get so weak, or my counts would get down. So I decided to make posters. The first poster started to let my students know that I was okay, and so that they could see pictures of me and things like that. But then it became more than that. The community got a hold of it, social media got a hold of it, because of course I did post it on my social media, and the community came out, and then it went from there. The community started following my story. My family hosted a yard sale, and the community came out to help pay for my chemotherapy. The news started coming out, and it just went from there. So I had support during the whole thing. So I decided, since I had support, and I knew not everybody had support, that I was going to use my story to help others. I wanted it to be the support for others, because not everybody has that, and I did. So one day I went to a follow-up visit, and there was an elderly man. He was in a wheelchair, and his family has dropped him off so they could go park the car, and so he was going to sit in the lobby while he waited on them. I told them, don't worry about it, I'd take him up. I knew where the chemo room was, so I took him in his wheelchair, wheeled him on up to the chemo room, found a chair, got him in the chair, and then I went on to my follow-up visit. I don't remember why I had to go back the next day, but when I went back the next day, my nurses came and found me. They said that the man the next day was looking for me and kept asking for the nurse that had rolled him up in the wheelchair, and we had to tell them that I wasn't a nurse. So I went and talked to my oncologist. We were joking about it, and she said, well, you would make a really good nurse. You would make a really good oncology nurse. You know what it's like. You've been there. So we thought about it for a week, and then eventually it just clicked. Being an oncology nurse is what I should do. I could help other cancer patients. I could know what it's like to have been there and help them through that, whether it's holding their hand, holding the caregiver's hand, but I know what it's like to go through it. Working on an oncology floor and trying to get my oncology certification is fantastic. I absolutely love it. I get to hold the hands of patients as they're going through what I went through, and caregivers, even though sometimes it's stage 4, but holding their hand. But I realized I live in a small town. Even though I work in a bigger town, I can only reach middle Georgia. And I think other people need help in other states, other countries. There's multiple people getting diagnosed with cancer all over the world. So I decided, not only am I going to work with my nursing career, but I'm going to write a book about my journey as well, and to talk about everything that happened during the cancer, the feelings and the emotions, and then going from that to becoming a nurse. So I am in the process of writing my book. There is also a love story in it as well. I never thought I would be the one to have a great love story, but I am. We were only dating a month and a half when we went to the ER, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And I told him, I understand if you don't stay a month and a half, that's not what you signed up for. And he literally looked at me and he said, there's no doubt in my mind I'm staying. I love you. I'm going to stay through it all. he did. What's very interesting, and I realized it as I was writing the book, my father passed away when I was 12 years old, and the very last movie I watched with my dad was the movie A Walk to Remember, which was with Mandy Moore, and it was about a cancer patient, and she falls in love with this guy from high school, and of course she eventually passes away, unfortunately. But it was one of my favorite movies, and it wound up being the last movie I ever watched with my dad, and I never thought that my life would be similar to the movie. I never thought that I would end up with a guy from high school. I never thought that he would have a very similar car to the one in the movie. I never thought I would get diagnosed with cancer. She was diagnosed with leukemia. I was diagnosed with lymphoma, but they're both types of blood cancers. And in the movie it shows how he stood by her side, and Will did the same thing for me. So I never imagined my life would be very similar to my childhood favorite movie. And so that will all be explained in the book, and the book will show those real emotions about falling in love, going through cancer, and then eventually going through nursing school and becoming a nurse and using those emotions to help others. The goal is to have it finished by September, which is Blood Cancer and Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. If we don't meet that goal, then we are definitely going to try to have it out by Christmas, and then the hard copies will come out from there.